Happy December, everyone. This is Char Nolan. We're here today for my Ask Me Anything. And I'm so glad to be here and hope everyone had a bountiful plant-based Thanksgiving or whatever kind of Thanksgiving you shared with family and friends. I hope it was bountiful. I hope you used a couple of Rouxbe recipes for your friends and guests. And before we dive into to today's questions, which are all fabulous, I thought that we would go over a couple of things that might make your assignments a little bit easier. And the first thing that I wanted to say is do not be afraid of fresh garlic. What I'm seeing in many, well, several, I should say, over the last few weeks is that people are using in the no oil saute, they've been using garlic granules, which will burn in the pan in a New York minute, and it will render that bitter, bitter flavor that you may have experienced in the garlic assignment. So I'm also going to say, don't buy the pre-peeled garlic because it goes bad very, very quickly. Instead, buy loose garlic, and if I hold it up against my sweater, you can see it really well. And it should not be bleached white. Fresh garlic that is from China has been bleached and they have shaved off the stem at the bottom. So you want a garlic that is as clean as possible. And this little thing here is I'll put it closer to the screen. It's a little rubber tube. You could also use a roll from wax paper or whatever, and you just put it in here. And if I were on a flat surface, it would be easier. But what it does is that it peels your garlic in a New York minute, and it's just fresher. It will render a much better flavor for you. Do not use powdered garlic in the fresh mushroom assignment. And I think that many, many years ago, I tried that once myself and thought, well, what could it hurt? And it just burned and I ruined my mushrooms, and I wasn't a very happy camper about that. The other thing is, we'll talk about it a little bit later, but there are different types of dehydrated garlic. There are garlic granules and there are garlic powder, and different companies make garlic powder differently. This happens to be Frontier Organic garlic powder, and it looks like a flour. So if you were using it in a soup, it would be absolutely perfect because it would just sort of disintegrate right into the soup. I would not use it if I were making a salad because it will stick to all of the leaves, and then you go back to using fresh garlic that you would either use with your garlic press, or I like to use a little mini mandolin so that I get really nice little slivers of garlic, which certainly add a lot of flavor. Just remember that if you are doing that garlic assignment, the garlic granules will burn and you'll absolutely ruin your dish. So we have a lot to go over. There were some really great, great questions. And as we go along, I may have a couple of other tidbits that I keep notes when I do your assignments. And good question. Let's figure this out. Or I'll go to Chef Eric and say, I think we need to change the wording of this because as I read it over, maybe a little bit more clarity would make it easier for the students. So whenever you bring something to us, we always think about it, confer about it, see what we can do to make it a better experience for you. So our first question is from Leslie M. Hello, Leslie. Good afternoon. And Leslie's concern is about plant-based sauces and dressings for salads. So automatically, I'm going to say to go to the Rouxbe unit on no oil salad dressings because in my opinion, they are really, really delicious and you can do different things with them. So today, I just put together a basic salad. It's sort of like a 3-2-1 where you have vinegar, mustard, and a little sweetener. And what I used for my sweetener today is I was moistening some dried dates, and I saved the liquid, and it was the perfect addition for the sweet for this. But what I did is I added chia seeds and flax seeds so that it would get a little bit thicker. The reality is that some of your friends or family might not want to have flaxseed meal in their salad. So I strained it with a double mesh strainer. Everybody should have a double mesh strainer and have them also in multiple sizes. And then I created this dressing that has a nice texture to it. It's not totally liquidy, but it will adhere. I let it soak for about 2 or 3 hours. And this is what the dressing would look like if you were going to serve it as it is. And I'll just pour it out for you, and you can kind of see that it's a little bit more viscous. And if you like seeing little flecks of things in your food, then I think it's absolutely perfect. My own preference is to have it the second way because I enjoy seeing how hard the chia seeds have worked to make a beautifully textured or a salad dressing of an excellent consistency. So for that, find a salad dressing that you like on the Rouxbe pages. If not, if you find a salad dressing that is plant-based, and it calls for oil, just leave the oil out and throw in about a tablespoon of flaxseed meal or chia seeds, and then put it in the refrigerator for a couple of hours, and you'll get a beautiful, beautiful salad dressing that you like. I say experiment with different spices, with different herbs and other things like that. And let's see. I found at the grocery store, we're having trouble with the sun here in Philadelphia, so pardon any if it looks like I'm sitting in the middle of a lightning storm. I'm not, I reassure you. But Mrs. Dash, everybody loves Mrs. Dash. Mrs. Dash is a go-to herb for many people who follow a whole food plant-based diet. Mrs. Dash just came out with marinades and salad dressings. All over the label, it says no high fructose corn syrup. And I'm like, yes, a win. No salt. I'm like, Mrs. Dash, you are the answer to a prayer. And then I noticed that she didn't say no sugar. And when I flipped over the label, the ingredient list was about this long, and sugar was the second ingredient. So what I say is, if you enjoy the Mrs. Dash herbs, they're also very good for adding different kinds of flavor, but do not buy the Mrs. Dash marinade because it's filled with sugar. It had 0 fat and 0 salt, but I think there were about 2 teaspoons of sugar in one serving of the dressing. So she gets one of those red circles with a line through it for me. So keep experimenting, keep having fun. Do not buy the dressings that say oil-free because they're usually loaded with sugar. So you'll save your time from reading every label in the grocery store and make your own. My favorite of our dressings is the Dijon vinaigrette, which I absolutely love. And I also think that the avocado ranch dressing is also another delicious dressing to work with. And the nice thing about the avocado ranch is that you can make it into a dressing or add less liquid and make it into a beautiful dip. So what could be better? With holidays coming, you might want to be the belle of the ball and take along a beautiful vegetable platter with that dressing, and everybody will be totally pleased. So very good question. One of the ones that I always never tire from seeing, because I think that eating plant-based is easy and you want all of those greens and salads to taste absolutely delicious. So this next question comes from Maria, who had a really good question. And what are some popular menu items offered in cafes and eateries that customers like? And she's thinking of perhaps opening up a cafe of some sort. So I'm going to give it to you in 3 steps. And the first one is, we have a graduate whose name is Dawn Creamer Lucas. And Dawn did open a cafe about 5 years ago in southern New Jersey. It's called the Gentle Giant Cafe. And Chef Fran and Chef Demetra and myself visited last summer, I believe. And we had an absolutely wonderful time. And her food, I would describe it as plant-based comfort food. And she had a beautiful potato salad and a lovely pasta salad and a big green salad and all kinds of wonderful things. She works very, very hard. And I believe that somewhere on the computer today, you will find her link. And she says that you can, if you have any questions, to either DM her on Facebook or on Instagram at Gentle Giant Cafe, and she would be very happy to take any of your questions. So going back to the 1, 2, 3. We had a student not too long ago who had the very same idea. And what they did was they invited 8 people to their home, and they made little cards with the name of each dish and had their friends rate each dish to see what was the most popular and how was the taste. And at the end of the evening, she compiled all of her data so that she knew that sliders were a great idea. She made a soup shooter, and everyone said, yes, who doesn't love soup? She made a delicious plant-based dessert. I believe she made 2 desserts, because I do find in vegan eateries that I do go to, people love to have a good, solid plant-based dessert. And I think she made the udon noodles, and she put them on a little Asian soup spoon. So you might want to do a needs assessment. And if you haven't done your shindig assignment yet, it might be the perfect time to have a party. I would also look at probably the most important thing, and that is finances. How will you finance this? Would you need investors? Would you have a GoFundMe? What would be your means of constructing this business? And the other thing is location, location, location. I will say, I know many Rouxbe grads and also other bakers and things like that in the field who start out doing farmers markets so that they can develop a following, and they can develop a reputation and those kinds of things that are very, very helpful. You might want to think about starting off doing some kind of catering, mini catering, where you have maybe 4 or 5 clients that you deliver to each week. So I think it's really important to think about those kinds of things. I'll give you my personal note. When I go to a cafe, I always look for a vegan soup. That's all I really need. Or I will look for a crudité platter with, I'll say, who makes your hummus? Where's your hummus from? And if they name a company, I kind of, smirk a little, or they say, oh, we make it ourselves. And then I might even get more specific and say, could I see a list of ingredients? People don't always like to go out and have a snack with me, but these are things that are important to me. But soup, crudité platter, avocado sandwiches these days are very, very popular, and maybe a dessert that's made on the outside, usually by a reputable vegan baker in Philadelphia. So you have a lot to think about, and I would definitely contact Dawn, and definitely as this as your progress moves on, let us know, because here in Pennsylvania, we will drive within the 3-state area to go visit one of our students because we love seeing their good work. So that was a great, great question. Excited. Yeah. Eating out is hard. It's very, very hard. I will say that you can find places, always call in advance, and that sometimes is very, very helpful. So thanks for that great question. I really appreciate it, Maria. That was a great question. This is from Alice J. And Alice J., this is probably the most popular question that any of us get. And we all think that the finishing touch to any dessert is confection or sugar, because it sort of adds a little beauty to it or whatever. So I'm going to sort of demonstrate. I never use machines on a live demo because those noises don't come across very well, and it feels like you're in a time tunnel of some sort. So here I have Magic Joe. You can use any brand. Date Lady makes a great sugar. Trader Joe Date Lady makes a great date sugar. Maple Joe makes a very good maple sugar. So does Trader Joe's. Come in small amount. It's very expensive. So the other ingredient is going to be a binding agent, either tapioca flour or perhaps cornstarch. This is tapioca flour. So what I did was I put them into this blender here, and I would not put them into your food processor. Even if you have a little food processor, you need something like this that has a small base to it, so that when the blades go around, there's not a lot of area that they have to cover, so everything will get ground. So you grind up the sugar, and add at the end, you add some of your tapioca flour or cornstarch. And then what happens is that you get a really good, maybe you can see it coming out of, this is a sifting wand. Some people know it as either a sifting wand. I'll let the sugar out for a second. Or you put tea in here and you make a cup of tea with it. And then what happens at the end is you have these really, really pretty cookies. And I put a light dusting of the maple confectioner sugar on top. You can put it on as heavy as you wish. And speaking of baking, I just thought I'd take a second. I saw this recipe yesterday online, and I thought I always try a recipe once and make it exactly the way that it is the first time, and then think to myself, what would I like better in this? So this is essentially a cup of walnuts, a cup of hydrated dates, and 2 tablespoons of a high quality cocoa. And you mix it together, and it came out so good raw that it could also be a raw truffle. But then you bake them for 15 minutes at 350 degrees, and they're absolutely delightful. Some are garnished with dates on top, some are garnished with a little piece of walnut. And then you have to kind of think about children, that there might be children who have to eat gluten-free or have special dietary restrictions. And this one is covered with a dye-free sprinkle. I don't use them for adults because they have palm oil in them, but for a child to eat a cookie that looks familiar to them. And let's see, where is it? Here they are. These are Watkins sprinkles. You get them at the regular grocery store. You don't have to go any place special. And they last forever, and kids like them. I was telling Patrick, our wonderful producer, that one year I did a birthday party for 10 4-year-olds, and the parents were whole food, plant-based, no oil. And it is the way that they are raising their family. And I called the mom up and said, will it be okay if I use these sprinkles? And she said, yes, it's his birthday. It's once a year. Thank you so much for calling. I made a birthday cake, and then the children iced it with a tofu-based icing, and then there must have been 7 bottles of this on their little thing. So that's the trick to making the date sugar. Let me give you a real ratio in real life, because this was my tester to make sure that it came out okay. You would want to use 1 cup of maple sugar or date sugar, and then you would want to use 1 teaspoon of either corn flour or tapioca flour. And I'm sorry, cornstarch and the tapioca flour. And that should work for you. They make delicious cookies. And I have to say, the little dusting does give the flavor, give a nice finishing flavor to the cookie. So considering that there isn't any margarine or butter or whatever, the cookie came out delightfully. I would cook them about 2 minutes longer so that they're extra crispy on the outside and then super moist on the inside. So very good question. Just jump into your holiday baking, enjoy it, and remember that a garnish can make a cookie still look familiar. So that is a very good question. And I think we all enjoy that part of the holidays, baking. There are also, just one last thing, there are many, many barks that people make using dates on the bottom, a nut butter, and then covering with melted chocolate, letting it solidify, and then cutting it into little squares or whatever. So Google date bar and you'll find out some great recipes that don't have any oil in them. So there we go. Oh, this is an interesting question. This is from Karina. She's having trouble with her truffle ganache, that beautiful, beautiful chocolate tort that everyone seems to enjoy. And it's made in that beautiful pecan crust that is a big favorite with many. And right now she's living in a climate that is very hot and humid. So the first thing I will say is, I don't know where you are in the program, but if it's something that can wait till the end when the climate is better, you can do that. One of the other things that we recommend to students is to make it at the coolest time of the day where you live. If you have air conditioning, put the air conditioning on. And my other suggestion is that if you still have questions about that, I would definitely go to the website and ask a question to Chef Fran, who is the director of our Essential Vegan Desserts program, and she knows the answer to everything. That's how I bake in the summer. We live in a 100-year-old house that doesn't have central air, but we do have a kitchen unit. So I get all of my work done very, very early in the morning. And by early, I mean between 5 a.m. and 7 a.m. I don't know if I've helped you that much, but those are a couple of ideas that might be helpful to you. So Jody A has a question about pie crusts, and she wanted to know how can she have her pie crust without it losing its shape. So Jody, I had a couple of questions about this because I wasn't sure what you were using as your fat agent. I have made pie crusts using almond butter because I think it has the most neutral flavor of all of the butters. And I just don't enjoy making that kind of a crust. So if you are using something like, let's think of a insert name of a vegan butter that you like, that should absolutely work. But in the whole food plant-based no oil way, you're going to see some shrinkage from your dough if you're not using a plant-based butter. I was going to say, well, I'll answer that question because there's another dessert question coming up. But I think going to Chef Fran might be your best answer, but I'd be curious to know what your fat source was for the pie crust and what kind of flour you were using. But thanks for the nice... oh, thanks. Yeah. Sorry about that. Oh. Hi, Mark. How are you? I love this question so much because sometimes if I'm out shopping, I always think to myself, oh, look at this new pot or look at this new pan. I didn't have this when I was studying at Rouxbe. So I'm going to preface the question by saying that I have a set of pots and pans that my parents gave to me when I was married 4,000 years ago in the last century. It really was the last century. And they are Farberware. And at the time, the Farberware stainless steel were made in America. And they remain in my cabinet using them regularly. I say if you're not sure what you want to do for stainless steel, you can do one of two things. One would be to go to a thrift shop and pick up a couple of used stainless steel saute pans and see if you like them. And then the other thing is, this is not my Gladiator shield. This pan here is called a caraway pan. It has a high, heavy-duty ceramic inside to it. It's a fabulous saute pan. It cleans very, very easily. It sautés beautifully. I am enamored with this pan, and since receiving it as a gift last Christmas, I very, very rarely use my stainless steel pans. So you might want to look into caraway. This is my own opinion. This is my own recommendation. Caraway as in the seed that you see in rye bread. I would stand cautious of prices that are relatively low where the company has you believing that it's a high quality pan, but the reality is that they're really cheap and they're going to fall apart or lose their film or whatever. So excuse me for this noise for 1 second. So caraway is my favorite, and my old Farberware pots still work terrifically. And I am of the belief that we don't always have to get new things for new projects. So I hope that that is helpful to you. Oh, Maria has another great question. And this one is, what is something that you like for dessert? Well, I think we have a wonderful photo for you to take a look at, and you can kind of see what I like to make for desserts. If you're looking at the heart-shaped photo with the blueberries and the raspberries on it, that is from the Engine 2 cookbook, and it is called Dumpster Cobbler. So why not put it into a heart-shaped pan and make a fun and beautiful dessert? And everyone absolutely loves this Delicious, delicious dessert. Another thing, you're going to see two chocolate desserts. One looks like a little mousse and it has a fork shadow with cocoa. And then there's another one that looks like a pie with three raspberries on it. That is actually made from six peeled boiled apples and one melted 72% chocolate bar, and you drain the apples and let them cool thoroughly and then throw everything into the Vitamix. And when you wake up the next day, you've got these beautiful, beautiful desserts. In the lower right hand corner, you're going to see those chocolate muffins. If you're a follower of Rip Esselstyn, those are his Mighty Muffins. And what I did to that recipe was I followed it exactly, and then I added some cocoa to it, and I baked them. And then I covered them with a little chocolate ganache whose recipe may be familiar to you. So I think, let me just go here really quickly. Hold on for 1 second. The last one is, here we are. The one in the middle, I don't know if any of you have taken the Waste Not course. It's a great way to learn and understand full food utilization. It's a program that Rouxbe does through the James Beard Foundation. And that is made from culled fruit that was frozen and then put in a blender and then into a silicone pan to freeze. And then when it was frozen, I just got out an ice cream scoop and made that. So I like a lot of things that are quick and easy, that don't require the scientific measuring skills of a NASA scientist, just because that's just the way that my brain thinks. I also have to say, in Jane Esselstyn's book, The Woman Warrior Cookbook, the big blue one, she and her mother have a contest in that book to make biscuits. And Anne's is called Flat Biscuits. And so make some flat biscuits, open them up, cover them with fresh fruit, throw some aquafaba on it, a little shaving of chocolate, and you have an absolutely delicious dessert. Here's my spin. Desserts are tough because you have had, maybe you were famous for making, let's say, an angel food cake, and people expect you to show up with that angel food cake. I can't ever imagine it happening in the plant food world, but for you to establish a new signature dessert that everyone would love and admire, I think that's the best way to go. Because then your angel food cake recipe that maybe you won a blue ribbon for at the county fair, you're going to show up with a beautiful, magnificent chocolate torte that people will absolutely, their eyeballs will be spinning in their head. So think new, think fun. But I hope, Maria, that answered your question. People sometimes say to me, oh, what's your favorite vegan ice cream? And the answer is none, and for two reasons: sugar and fat. Also, they're very expensive. I see where the brand called Jenny's is $11 and $12 a pint. So anyway, come to my house, Maria, and we can bake together. That would be fun. Yes, it's that the yeah. Okay. Sorry, I'm just doing a little technical review here. I'm going to go to Michael's question, and I did attach the newsletter from the Harvard School of Public Health about MSG. When you think about clean cooking and clean ingredients, you're never going to see MSG in a recipe that calls for that flavoring. So MSG has been around for maybe 120 years. It was invented in Japan. It has a multitude of ingredients, seaweed, beetroot, a couple of other things, sugar, of course, and amino acids. So a teaspoon of the MSG contains about 800 milligrams of sodium. So let's go back to the sodium sort of formula that the World Health Organization is following right now. They say that consumption of sodium should be within the range of 1,500 milligrams per day. I know the American Heart Association has a different number, but let's just round up to 2,000. So if you throughout the day consumed 2,000 milligrams of sodium, and then you also had a bunch of MSG. It's going to sort of like be the springboard for consuming too much sodium. I personally, I don't think I've used that since I was a long time ago. And I don't think that anyone else needs to use it just because it brings on extra sodium. That's the main point that a lot of physicians who I know and work with say about that, because you have to remember that there are some people who, before they become plant-based, are consuming 4,000 and 5,000 milligrams of sodium a day. And what we want to do is whittle that number down. So I'm leaving it open-ended. My own personal belief is I don't use MSG because I keep an eye on my sodium really, really well. But that was a great question, and I enjoyed providing that information to you. And I think we did the pie crust, and let me keep going down here. So this is from Heidi. Heidi, hello, how are you? We spoke over the weekend. I hope you're well, and I hope you and your family had a good Thanksgiving. You know what? Dried ingredients in terms of spices are absolutely perfect. Dried rosemary, if you had tons of it in your garden this year, I hope that you have dried it and that you have either minced it or put it into your blender or whatever. It's certainly fine. And the same thing holds true with garlic. It'll still give the same flavor. On the front of this Frontier bottle, it says 1/8 of a teaspoon equals 1 full garlic clove. So just remember that foods taste differently in off season, whether it be with the greens that you're using or maybe the herbs. But I think maybe having an indoor herb garden might work. Garlic would be hard to grow, but I think rosemary is something you could probably keep in tow. And congratulations, Heidi, on finishing Forks Over Knives course. It was a pleasure having you, and I hope that you'll come back and visit us for another course, because what I see a lot of is that the Forks Over Knives people want to learn to make some desserts, and they head to Chef Fran's class, which I still haven't taken, and one of these days I am going to. So thank you so much. Connie, this is another great question. If you have done the gluten-free unit, here's my suggestion. Do not overcook the chickpea pasta. You can follow the ingredients, the information on the box, the instructions on the box. I would undercook it by a minute. I would rinse it as suggested, and then I would put it into a pan with my sauce so that it would cook for an additional minute and you would arrive to the texture that you like. But chickpea pasta, I find to be the trickiest of them all. I personally prefer using corn pasta, and that seems to hold together a little bit better than the bean pastas, but that's just my experience. Follow the directions, cook it a minute less, add it into your pan of sauce, into a saute pan with sauce, and I think you'll arrive to the texture that you are accustomed to with regular dishes. So I hope that that is helpful to you. Love this question. Everyone has a question about, excuse me, making a tofu scramble. So I say make sure that you're using either firm or extra firm to get a really good texture. Crumble it up well with your hands. And as far as hummus is concerned, I'm going to give you my number one tip. You can use either beans that you have made yourself, from dry to, of course, moist, or you could use canned beans, both of them. First tip, put the beans that you're going to use for the hummus into a kitchen towel. Close it up and just sort of do this with your hands, massage it with your hands so that much of the skin to the chickpea will come off, and that's going to render a silkier, smoother texture to the hummus. And then the other thing is you have it in your blender. And I don't think it makes any kind of difference what kind of blender you use for hummus. After about 30 or 45 seconds, you're going to throw in an ice cube, and the ice cube acts as a tenderizer, and it will also help the flavoring and the texture of the hummus. But you will see a huge difference when you remove as much of the skin as possible. I'm not saying that you're going to remove one by one, because you would be there for a good part of the day. But in a towel, wrap, 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 and there you go. You'll have a nice smooth hummus that you would enjoy. If you add tahini, make sure it's a light colored tahini, because nothing looks worse than red tahini in hummus. So you want to, just do that. That's a great question, Mark. And I think that all of us enjoy a good tofu scramble. Your vegetable profile also has a lot to do with it. You want it to be colorful. Instead of using just one green pepper, maybe there's room for, a tricolor pepper and tomatoes and some fresh parsley and lots of other things. So there's a vibrancy to the dish. And people don't have that people have a positive reaction to your beautifully made dish. So very good question. This is from Tony. Tony, it sounds like you were very inventive. She made a tofu cutlet to mimic turkey. She marinated it in tahini and spices. But when she was finished, it tasted bland. So here's the thing about tofu. We have a great roasted tofu recipe in our curriculum. And if you've been around a long time, I never ate tofu until I made that recipe because it was just that good. So marinating it in a shallow dish, nothing touches. There are individual slices that are covered well with the marinating. And I like to do it overnight so that it tastes really, really good. And when you roast it in a pan, they should be at least an inch away from each other so that they have the opportunity to get caramelized and also develop a nice texture other than being like soft tofu. And my recommendation would be to use either extra firm or firm tofu. I'm a person who likes to take the tofu out of the package, drain it, and then I roll it in a kitchen towel and put it in the refrigerator for a few hours so that the arrival of the marinade is the new fluid that is in the tofu, if that makes sense. So I say bravo to you for doing that. And I'm sure that all of the delicious sides probably tasted very, very delicious. So that is very, very good. For the MSG question, there is the article from the School of Public Health that should be helpful. So this is from Melissa B., who also cooks without oil. Do you cook in a wok and stir fry? I do not, and I'll give you the big reason why. When I was at Rouxbe, I had a beautiful, beautiful wok, and I made beautiful stir fries, and I found out that I could use my air fryer to mimic how I think vegetables taste and look when you are making a stir fry. And my air fryer is maybe my new best friend, but a wok is a beautiful, beautiful vessel, and it makes beautiful, beautiful food. And just to answer your question, more specifically, you would use the no oil saute method in the wok, just like you do for the mushroom assignment. So you would want to have a deglazing agent, and whether it would be water or stock. Sometimes when I would cook Asian inspired dishes in the wok, I would use a diluted low sodium tamari, and that certainly did the trick and created that caramelization that you were looking for. Very good question, Melissa, because once you master the no oil saute, you can carry it over to tons and tons of other assignments. And I think that would work well for you. Scott wants more specific instructions on adding salt while cooking. So I don't cook with salt. And remember that salt is an acquired taste. And if you're trying to unwind that flavor, you've got to give yourself, they say, 21 days. Um, you could use a low sodium tamari, a low sodium soy sauce. You could use Bragg's aminos to get that flavoring. When I do, let's say that I'm making a tofu dish, I will add the salt source, which comes in the source of soy, at the end, so that the heat has calmed down a little bit and it kind of layers the flavors, the natural flavors that are in the pan. So I hope that that helps. I also like using lemon at the end. I find that lemon is a great way to layer flavors so that we move away from the saltiness of dishes that we are accustomed to. So this is from Tony C, and she wants to know what inspired me to become plant-based. I'll give you the 1 minute version. I worked at Whole Foods Market. I was a marketing team leader. I got a memo that said, we're bringing in this new program. It's going to be whole food plant-based, no oil. Here are your instructions, go with it. And then several weeks later, a memo came out company-wide saying that they were inventing an immersion for employees. And I sort of was like, oh, that sounds nice. That's kind of nice. But then I went to a regional meeting, and our regional president came into the room, and he looked markedly different. And he had shared that he was doing this 28-day challenge with the Engine 2 diet, and it made him feel so good. So 20 seconds after the meeting, I ran to a bookstore, I went grocery shopping, and the next day I said, I'm going to be a vegan for 28 days because it was only a 28-day challenge. And, I did this thing. I ate a lot of oats and a lot of greens. And I kept a little record of what I was going to eat on the 29th day because I was like, pizza, everything from the standard American diet. But on day 10, I woke up and I thought, oh my gosh, having had a lifelong history of osteoporosis, I had absolutely not 1 second of pain. And I made this correlation that, oh, maybe Hippocrates was right about food is medicine. And then about 3 or 4 months later, I got invited to go to the inaugural Engine 2 immersion, which was one of the richest experiences of my life. And it's where I saw the director's cut of Forks Over Knives. And if you have not seen the documentary, I think you can still find it on Netflix. I'm not sure. I saw the director's cut of Forks Over Knives, and every 7 seconds it would come, director's cut, director's cut. So I got home from the immersion feeling as though I had been just electrocuted with change. And I called up Rip Esselstyn and I said, this is my name. This is where I work. I would love to show Forks Over Knives to my community. And several months later, Rip came to Philadelphia and we did the unofficial premiere of Forks Over Knives in Philadelphia. And that's it in a nutshell. So Rip is a very good friend of mine, and I adore his mom and dad and his sister Jane. And I come from a family with people who have heart disease and cancer. And my strict belief in my heart is that the only way that I know not to sort of carry on their medical history is to follow a whole food plant-based diet to the best of my ability and embrace good health. And that's why, excuse me, that's why Rouxbe for me was sort of like the yellow brick road to better health, because I had this bunch of knowledge that I had gotten from taking the eCornell course and from reading lots of articles and books and things like that. But I was looking for a conduit to sort of solidify everything that I had learned. And I often tell people that if I had not had my Rouxbe experience as a student almost 10 years ago, I don't know where my life would be, because Rouxbe for me was sort of like a trajectory to have a whole new life, professionally, personally, and otherwise. And That's a big question, but I answered it the best that I could. It's 2:45. I'm just checking the time. Um, and let me see here. Hold on a second. A little bit of a glitch. I answered dessert. Okay. I think that we might be coming to an end. Okay. Let me refresh here. Hold on a second. That would be great. I'm talking to Patrick. These cookies I made today were really, really good. Um, what I will do is I will post on the Facebook group on the Forks Over Knives, the Pro Plant, and the Pro Cook. I will post a recipe for one of the date barks because they make a beautiful appearance and everyone will eat them, but only you are appreciating the fiber and potassium that's in those dates. So I don't make any kind of cookies or anything like that. I might dip some pretzels because that's something that's recognizable to people. And I'll make something fruity, like a big fruit salad or something. But I really stay away from those sweet treats. I was really surprised with how good these were, but I will post that onto the Facebook group as soon as we get off. And if you're not a member, you submit a request, and then on Sunday nights, we go live with the new people who've come into the group. So that's a fun question, though. I do like to make my own nice cream with bananas and set up a little bar that might have, fresh fruit, some dandies. Dandies are vegan marshmallows. They come in little tiny sizes, and for familiarity's sake, sometimes 2 or 3 marshmallows on a Sunday might make someone, feel happy. I believe that you can do any dessert and make it look just as good. I will tell you one that's really good. Wonton wrappers or rice paper, throw some fresh fruit in it, and bake it in the oven for about 15 minutes, and they're nice and crunchy and delicious. So go on the internet, search, look around, follow us on Instagram at Rouxbe Plants and at Rouxbe, because we're always posting new things and ideas that we either try or, one of the chefs will send something that they enjoyed. So I think that the internet is a great conduit for learning about what's going on in the world, and especially the whole food plant-based world. So that's a very good question. And the next question is? So Michael has a question about pie making. What kind of butter would I use? I think that is a Chef Fran question. I do think, from what I know from my plant-based baking friends who are vegan, who are not whole food plant-based, no oil, is that they enjoy using Miyokos. And also to make sure that you get it in the sticks and not in the tub. That's probably the most important piece, because you can cut the sticks into little cubes, making it easier to make your crust. So I think that should work well. This is such a great question. Polenta, popcorn, and one other way. What is a good way to make garlic bread? So I'm gonna answer this question one way, and then I'll give you the idea. Garlic bread that everyone loves. We hear people saying how much they love garlic bread. All you really need to do to make good garlic bread is to first toast your bread in the oven, and then take a clove of garlic peeled and rub it right onto the bread, and it will taste delicious. When I make garlic bread these days, I will use hummus and spread it on ever so thinly, stick it in the oven, and then put some, before that I've got the garlic and then the hummus. If I were going to use a butter, I'm going to go back to Miyoko's. It's one that I hear many of my friends use and love and appreciate. And you can either get it, I believe it comes in a package of 2 little bars. I would also make sure that you read the ingredients, but I think I'm going to go with Miyoko's on that one. And nutritional yeast is very good on popcorn. But I understand, I say this, wherever you are, enjoy health, enjoy what you like to do. And I think this is a great question, so I appreciate it. And the next question. So this is from Tony, and I think Tony needs to sign up for Essential Vegan Desserts. In terms of icing, how I make my icing is with silken tofu that has been drained, and I've wrapped it in a towel, and then I take it out of the fridge a couple of hours later, and it has maple syrup in it, and it has cocoa powder, and it makes a beautiful, beautiful, silky, really, really nice icing. In terms of there being sort of like the plant-based version of Betty Crocker in a can, I wouldn't know if that existed, but Chef Fran Costigan has a program coming up on December the 17th, and it's about substituting ingredients when baking. So I hope that you would sign up for that, because I think that Fran can probably give you the best example. And her cookbook has some really good recipe ideas for pie crust and for icing. So go to Fran's website, which is francostigan.com. And it's a great way to become familiar with her work, or tune in to her live event, which is happening in 2 weeks from today. Next Tuesday, you have Chef Dan for his live event. And the last one of the year, with a big drum roll, is Chef Fran. So Patrick had to read a few of the questions to me. One more. Take it away, Patrick. So his question, this is from Michael again. And Michael wants to know when to put salt on when he's finishing a dish. I say finish it in the pan, plate it beautifully, add a garnish, make it look good. If you are wanting to move away from adding extra sodium to your dish, I would not put a salt shaker on the table, but perhaps you could put a little bottle of a little decanter of some low sodium tamari, or some of the Bragg's. I know most of us associate soy and tamari with Asian cuisine, but in terms of flavor, I think that will do the trick. I think that's what I would do. One last thing I forgot to mention is back to the salad dressing question, which seemed like it happened 4 days ago. If you want to change up the appearance of your dressing, a lot of people are using dark balsamic in their dressings, which tends to render a deeper dark flavor that might be off-putting for some people. So using a white vinegar is a good way to go. People seem to like that. And one last thing is to talk about garnishes for a minute. This was a 16-ounce jar filled with pomegranate arils that I bought a nice sized pomegranate at my local grocery store, and it was $3.99, and I filled this up to the brim and have used it for garnishes on salads and desserts and other things these last few days. But my point is the pomegranate was $3.99, and at the grocery store, they were selling an 8-ounce container of pomegranate arrows for $7.99. So that would be $16. So if you want to make a delicious garnish for a much lower price, get your own pomegranate, pop it open and peel it or hammer it or however you like to make it, because I think that that does make a big difference. And I think I'm looking at my ingredients and everything, and I think that we have covered everything. One last thing, maybe you follow us at Rouxbe Plants on Instagram, and you see that once a month we highlight a graduate and we learn about what they are doing and seeing their excellent work. And they send along a headshot and they send along some beautiful photos of their food. And we feature them because we love learning what everyone is doing in the field. So if you think that you would like to be showcased, we do it once a month. You can email me at Char, Char, at rouxbe.com. And my one last thing is we have a lot of students who have written amazing, amazing books. In January, my live event will be with Kathy Caton, who has just written a new book. It's her second cookbook. And we also have Jeremy Lalonde, who has just written his first ebook. And if you go to PB Jeremy on Instagram, you can read all about his book. He's a really fun guy. We featured him as a graduate highlight, and he's just a really wonderful guy. So we like to support our students. We like to know what you're doing, whether you've got an article in Forks Over Knives magazine or you're teaching a class here or there, all kinds of wonderful things. So with that said, I believe we have covered everything. Thank you so much for your support throughout the year, to everyone at Rouxbe, from the support team to all of the instructors and those who work behind the scenes. It's really a pleasure being here once a month, and it's really fun reviewing your really good work, and we love seeing what you do when you finish. So thank you so much. My special thanks to our producer Patrick, who is just one of the nicest people I have ever met, and it's always a pleasure to meet up with him once a month, even though we chat regularly. So sending good wishes, good vibes, lots of fun cooking, lots of healthy cooking, and thank you again so much. Warm wishes for a holiday season. This is Char Nolan signing off live from Philadelphia, city of brotherly love and sisterly affection. Bye-bye.